Carthago dendula est. Carthage must be destroyed. This was the mindset of Roman soldiers as they burned Carthage to the ground. The destruction of Carthage is probably the most famous event in the city's history. But obviously, a city's end can only tell us so much. Long before Carthage was destroyed, it was founded by a very powerful people, and led by a very powerful founder. Today we're talking about Carthage's founder, Dido. Now this isn't exactly a mythology in the sense that people worship Dido, but it's not really a history either due to a lack of written sources from the time period. Think of it more like a bit of ancient folklore, or a folk hero. Now most of our sources describing the founding of Carthage come from outside sources like the Greeks and the Romans. And if you know anything about Carthaginian history, you know the Romans were not big fans of them. The bias here is basically like if your ex and their friend wrote the story of your birth. Unfortunately, it's all we have to go on though. So without further ado, let's begin. Our story begins not on the coast of North Africa, but on the coast of the Levant in the Phoenician city-state of Tyre. In this city-state, there's a prince and a princess, Pygmalion and Elysia respectively, and they are children of the king of Tyre. The king wanted to divide power evenly among his children, but Pygmalion was crafty and he wanted power all for himself. Pygmalion killed his father, possibly in his sleep, but it's unclear, and he framed it to make it look like he had nothing to do with it. Before succession could happen, Pygmalion killed Elysia's husband, again making it look like an accident, and because the ancient world is sexist, there was no way for her to take control of Tyre. Elysia was saddened by her husband and father's deaths, and when she went to sleep, she saw her husband come to her in the form of a ghost. He warned her that Pygmalion was the one who killed him, and that she might be next if she doesn't run. Elysia took heed of this warning, and left with a group of other Carthaginian nobles who didn't like Pygmalion, and together they all set sail into the Mediterranean. The first place they arrived was Cyprus. When they arrived, they found the island full of people, and they took a bunch of women along with them for the ride, so that way they would have wives in the new colony they were going to establish. With the women coming along for the ride, they set sail again, and they sailed off into where Carthage would be settled. Now Carthage wasn't the first Phoenician colony, but it was one of the earlier ones, so help from the homeland and other colonies was rare. They were on their own. They landed at the spot that would become Carthage, and they met the locals, Libyan people. When they heard the colonists' stories, they called Elysia Dido, which in their language means wanderer, and she took this name with pride. The Libyans and the Phoenicians arranged a deal. The new people could have all the land they could cover with the skin of an ox. And this is where Dido shows off a little bit of her craftiness. Dido had her people cut the ox skin into thin strips. By the time they finished, they arranged the strips along the base of a peninsula, and that way, they got the entire thing, along with a natural harbor. And it was this natural harbor that made Carthage so powerful. Real quick side tangent, this is actually a very similar story for the founding of New Amsterdam. The Dutch colonists made a deal with the local Lenape natives. They could have all the land they could cover with the skin of an animal. Upon arranging the deal, the Dutch cut the animal skin into thin little strips, and they lined it along the peninsula, and they eventually got the island of Manhattan. Pretty neat, huh? Never let someone tell you history can't be useful. It can help you find clever loopholes while arranging deals. Side tangent aside, let's get back to Carthage.
Wait a second. What's all this about ox hides? Where's the Babylonians? What about trade routes?
I'm a mythology channel. What did you expect?
Well, we're no history. If you want to know history about how Carthage came to actually be, you should come over to our channel and watch our video about the foundation of Carthage.
Be sure to check out No History's video after you finish this one. Well, with that intrusion out of the way, we're back to focusing on Dido. For the next part though, we need to jump ahead to the end of her life, where she famously shows up in Virgil's Aeneid. Long story short, Aeneas is a refugee from the Trojan War, and he's going on a quest to fulfill his destiny of founding the city that will become Rome. The goddess Juno, Hera's Roman version, really didn't want Aeneas to fulfill his destiny, and she was willing to stop him at all cost. Juno persuaded Venus, Aeneas' mother, to make Dido fall in love with Aeneas, and because Venus loves shipping people, she just had to let this happen. At first, Dido wanted nothing to do with Aeneas, but after Cupid shot her with an arrow, she fell madly in love with him, much to the dismay of Jupiter, who really wanted Rome to be a thing. Jupiter sent Mercury down there to set Aeneas straight and back on the right path. Aeneas realized that he needed to fulfill his destiny, and so he snuck out at night to avoid startling Dido. Right as Aeneas and his crew were leaving though, Dido woke up and saw Aeneas sailing out of Carthage's harbor. She was so distraught and went completely insane and suicidal. She put herself atop a funeral pyre and cursed Aeneas and his descendants. She declared that her people would come the closest to destroying his people. This line in particular is very noteworthy once you have the historical context. Virgil wrote the Aeneid during the reign of Augustus as a propaganda piece. When Romans heard this line, they would immediately think back to the Punic Wars and Hannibal's famous march into Italy over the Alps. That was the closest Rome ever came to being destroyed by that point in time. Virgil wrote that line to ascribe a divine origin to the Punic Wars. And that's the story of Dido. As previously mentioned, you should go check out No History's video for the true establishment of Carthage. I'm glad we got to start off the year with a collab, man. Thank you for watching, leave a like if you enjoyed and subscribe if you want to see more. I have a Twitter and Discord where I post memes, so you can go follow those if you want. And until next time, have a good one.